Hare Krishna. I am very grateful to be given this opportunity to speak one of the series of Bhagavad Katha for the pleasure of the Lord and invoking the blessings of all the Vaishnavas. In the 10th canto, when Nanda Maharaj celebrates the appearance of Krishna, it is explained by Shukadeva Goswami that the whole celebration that took place was just for two purposes. Vishnu Aradhanarthaya Swaputrasya Udayaya cha. That Nanda Maharaj, the whole purpose, the main purpose of having this huge, opulent festival was Vishnu Aradhanarthaya, to please the Lord. Because when we please the Lord, when we water the root of the tree, every part of the tree is nourished. Yasmin tushti jagat tushtam. Swanushthitasya dharmasya samsiddhir haritoshanam. The perfection of all our activities is pleasure of the Lord. And the second reason is to invoke blessings for whatever work we have begun. It's also, we will be entering soon the new year. So, that's how we are gathered here. I was thinking, when I was informed of this 1 week of pure nectar flowing, said, what should I speak? So I decided to speak on one particular chapter, which is from the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, wherein a very sweet, loving and intimate interaction is taking place between Krishna and Srimati Rukmini Devi. Actually, of the 335 chapters of the Srimad Bhagavatam in the 12 cantos, 123 chapters are exclusively dedicated to Krishna. Exclusively. His personal relationship, interaction with the devotees, his intimate devotees. That is Bhagavatam. Reciprocation between Bhagavan and the Bhakta. 90 chapters within the 10th canto which is the life of Krishna. And in the 11th canto, the teachings of Krishna. Of the 31 chapters, 27 is practically Krishna speaking to Uddhav, which is much more elaborate than even the Bhagavad Gita, personally spoken by the Lord. And in the first canto, about 6 chapters, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, and then 15, where Arjuna is feeling the separation. So Vyasadeva just gives us a small sample of what's going to come in the Bhagavatam, and then makes us go through 9 cantos to prepare ourselves. First, a free sample is given. A good salesperson does that. First, free sample, and once you taste it and you like it, then you say, pay the price now. And takes us through that. In the 10th canto of the 90 chapters, 40 relates to Krishna's pastime in Vrindavan. Then Akrura comes and takes him out from there. Takes them out, Krishna and Balaram. 10 chapters of Krishna's pastimes in Mathura. And next 40 chapters are Krishna's beautiful pastimes in Dwarka. So, in the Dwarka pastime, in fact, one of the reasons why Krishna, after erecting the Dwarka fort, just walks away from the battle, thus being glorified as Ranchod Rai, is actually because he wants to hurry. He understands there's going to be a letter coming from Srimati Rukmini Devi. So there is description, Shukadeva Goswami describes the marriage of Krishna and Rukmini Devi. And then in the next few chapters, Krishna's marriage with all his different queens. In the case of Shamantakmani, the Jambavati and Satyabhama, and then Kalindi, and then goes to Ujjain, Vinda and Anuvinda, the two kings, their brothers, their sister Mitravinda marries her, and then Nagnajiti Satya from Ayodhya, Koshal Desh. In this way, Bhadra, Lakshmana, etc. He marries the principal 8 queens, and then after defeating Bhaumasur, he marries, gives shelter actually, gives such amazing, prestigious position to those princesses who were practically abandoned, captured by Bhaumasur. And in this way, the beautiful reciprocation of Krishna with all the 16,108 queens is described in the Bhagavatam by Shukadeva Goswami's lotus mouth. After that, even though this incident happened much later, Shukadeva Goswami introduces one chapter. And this chapter is entitled Krishna Teases Rukmini. Now, when did this pastime happen? This happened when Krishna, through Rukmini, got eldest son was Pradyumna. Interestingly, Pradyumna was married to Rukmi's daughter, whose name was Rukmavati. You know how Krishna had, given a special treatment to Rukmi after capturing Rukmini. And then Pradyumna through Rukmavati had a son, Aniruddha. And Aniruddha was married to the granddaughter of Rukmi. And her name was Rochana. And interestingly, during that marriage, Rukmi was killed by Balramji in a game of dice. Because in that occasion they were playing dice, and all the kings, including the king of Kalinga, specially told Balramji to come and do. Now they knew that Krishna, and if Krishna comes, then he has to win. So they invited Balram because Balram may not so expert at playing. So first time Balaram lost. Second time he won. But Rukmi cheated. Third time, and actually he picked up his club, Balramji, and actually killed him. Straight on the spot. So after this, of course, Aniruddha came and he was married. And this incident that we are going to be describing happened after that incident. Why I am giving you this background is, when we hear, then we realize the interesting pastime that happened between this extraordinary couple. So, Shukadeva Goswami begins the narration and says, once, in the company of her maid servants, Queen Rukmini was personally serving her husband, the spiritual master of the universe, Krishnam Mande Jagadguru, by fanning him as he relaxed on her bed. Trying to give a background so that you enter into that pastime. Imagine Krishna. And it's described that the unborn personality of Godhead, the supreme controller who creates, maintains, and then devours this universe, simply as his play, took birth among the Yadus to preserve his own laws. Etad Leelaya. And Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, as a perfect husband, Krishna is going to disturb by his words Rukmini's mood of service. Not to stop her Premamayi Seva, but to actually enhance it. And then Shukadeva Goswami in few verses describes how the environment was, how Rukmini's palace was. Rukmini's quarters were extremely beautiful, boasting a canopy hung with brilliant strings of pearls as well as effulgent jewels serving as lamps. Garlands of jasmine and other flowers hung here and there, attracting swarms of humming bees, and the spotless rays of the moon shone through the holes of the lattice windows. As Aguru incense drifted out of the window holes, the breeze wafting the scent of the Parijata grove carried the mood of a garden into the room. There the queen served her husband, the supreme lord of all the worlds, as he reclined upon an opulent pillow on her bed, which was as soft and white as the foam of milk. So this is the setting up, the background. Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, the palace is described to show how everything was perfectly arranged by Rukmini to please Krishna with her loving service. His Holiness Radhanath Swami one time made a very interesting statement. He said, attention to detail is a sign of love. So, Prabhupada explains in this purport about deity worship. Attention to every detail is actually an expression of that loving service. From her maidservant's hand, Goddess Rukmini took a yak-tail fan with a jewel handle, and then she began to worship her master by fanning him personally. Even though she had many maidservants, she personally took that fan and started fanning Krishna. Her hand adorned with rings, bangles, and chamra fan, Queen Rukmini looked resplendent, standing near Lord Krishna. Her jeweled ankle bells tinkled and her necklace glittered, reddened by the kumkum from her breasts, which were covered by the end of her sari. On her hips, she wore a priceless belt. So, she's fanning, and it's a very beautiful scene. As Krishna contemplated her, the goddess of fortune herself, who desires only him, Lord Krishna smiled. He was looking at her, and he was pleased that the form the goddess of fortune had assumed was suitable for her to serve as his consort. Anurupa Rupaihi. The word used by Shukadeva Goswami is Anurupa Rupaihi. And Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur says, when the Lord appears among the demigods, his consort appears as a demigoddess. When he comes as a human being, she comes as a human being. Perfectly understanding the mood, not just the attire, but even the mood was perfectly understood. That is the nature of a first-class servant. That not only they perfectly gel, but also understand the mood. Just like when Lord Krishna came as the Namo Mahavadanyaya, Lord Nityananda came as extra merciful. Even than him, where even Lord Chaitanya would not forgive, Nityananda would encourage him to forgive Jagai and Madhai. That's a perfect servant, understanding the mood of the master. Krishna thought, she has assumed a suitable form. Let me joke and see how she responds. Because unlike Satyabhama, who had a different mood, Krishna brought a parijat flower for Rukmini, and she wanted a whole tree. She was like that, very transcendently envious, couldn't tolerate. She had a left wing. And Rukmini was very, very grave, simply satisfied with her service, very saumya, very sober, very soft, pliable basically. Krishna wanted to create a particular situation where his wife would criticize him in irritation of love, and he wanted to enjoy that. She would never get angry actually. Krishna thought, I want to see her angry, with frowned eyebrows, and with red eyes, sidelong glances, and irritably speak something. So Krishna speaks these following verses that I'm going to be speaking with this mood. What is Krishna thinking within? His mood is, my dear beloved, you think you are very intelligent? Though you are endowed with all transcendental qualities, you are ignorant of your own welfare. Therefore, you are not actually intelligent. I will explain you how. This is mood. Basically, Krishna is going to prove to Rukmini, you made a wrong choice in accepting me. गड़बड़ी किया तुमने. With this in mind, that's how he wants to agitate and see her reaction. So he begins. Rajaputri ipsita bhupair lokapala vibhuti bhihi. He says, my dear princess, you were sought after by many kings as powerful as the rulers of planets. They were all abundantly endowed with political influence, wealth, beauty, generosity, and physical strength. So this is his first proposal. You made a mistake. Rajaputri, first he begins addressing Rajaputri, O princess, you are the daughter of a king, and I am penniless son of Vasudeva. Why did you choose me as your husband? Now she may say, अब मैं क्या करूं? There was no alternative. Sometimes it happens. कोई alternative था, जो मिला पहला ठीक है, उसको हार डाला. So there's no, ipsita bhupair. You can't say there was no alternative because many kings wanted you as their wives. But then she might say, they were all inferior to you. No. He says, vibhuti bhi. They were endowed with beauty, wealth, power, courage. All of this was there. Why did you choose me? And then he further says, he establishes his point that there was no compatibility. He says, since your brother and father offered you to them, why did you reject the king of Chedi, Shishupal, and all those other suitors who stood before you, maddened by Cupid? Why instead did you choose us, who are not at all your equal? So the first Argument is Vavrishe asamam. He says, तुमने गलती किया. You can't say they were far away because they came to your place. Tan praptan. They came to you. You didn't have to go to them. They came to you. And you can't say your relatives were opposed. क्या करें? लोग स्वीकार नहीं किए घर में. So you can't say that because your brother and your father wanted to give you to them. Tatta bhratra pitra cha. And then Krishna goes to the next argument. He said, why did you make a mistake? Rajabhyo bhibhyata subhru. He says, terrified of these kings, O lovely broad one, we took shelter in the ocean. He's saying, I'm such a cowardly person that I ran away from these kings. And I hid in the ocean. I created a city and went inside and hid. Bin Laden jaise. We have become enemies of the powerful men and we practically abandoned our royal home. Balavadbhi kritadvesham. I have very few friends. Practically everyone is my enemy. You should have thought about that. Everyone will become your enemy. Not only that, I don't have a position. Interesting. Krishna, after killing Kamsa, put Ugrasen Maharaj. After killing Jarasandha, he put his son Sahadev. He never accepted any position. He doesn't, I'm not even a king. So he's saying, you failed to notice my cowardly nature, a great fault in a Kshatriya. I fled from the fear to live in the ocean. Even though I showed fear, you can't say I have proper conduct. Why? For I made enemies with many stronger kings and have only a few friends like Arjun. Very few friends. Moreover, being a Yadava, it was not proper for me to be a king. After killing Kamsa, although I was entitled to the throne, I gave the royal throne to grandfather Ugrasen. Tyakta nripasanan. I didn't even take the asan of the king. And then he says, further, actually one by one, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur counts 11 arguments Krishna gives why you made a wrong choice. Aspashta vartmaman pumsam aloka pathami yusham. Then he says, O fine broad lady, women are usually destined to suffer when they stay with men whose behavior is uncertain and who pursue a path not approved by society. Pious women who follow the path of men like us must almost always suffer. Why? Aspashta vartmana, uncertain behavior. He says, I have no fixed aim in life. All others have aim in life. I have no aim in life. People call me a vagabond. Am I a cowherd boy or a prince? कन्हैया किसको कहेगा तू मैया, एक ने तुझको जन्म दिया रे, एक ने तुझको पाला, किसको कहेगा तू मैया. This is my old song, I remembered. He says, I didn't follow in the footsteps of my father Nanda, not faithful to Radharani or the gopis and gopas. Suddenly I left them all to become a prince. Now I don't have a kingdom either. Neither here nor there. And you chose me? Socially, my behavior is very different. I was not satisfied with one wife. I married 16,108. Since trained in village and not aware of urban etiquettes, I can't satisfy them all. Whoever become attached to me are generally left to cry for the rest of their life. Just look at the Brajvasis. सोच लेती थी पहले. And then he goes further. He says, Nishkinchanaha vayam shashvad, Nishkinchana janapriyam. We have no material possession. Nishkinchana. No bank account. And we are dear to those who similar have nothing. मैं आया एक भिखारी, प्यारे आ जाओगे। सब भिखारी लोग ही मेरे पास आते हैं, मैं खुद भी भिखारी हूं, मेरे पास कुछ नहीं है। Therefore, O slender one, the wealthy hardly ever worship me. I was carried penniless to the house of Nanda. I was never the proprietor of anything, both in Vrindavan and in Mathura. My devotees are not very opulent. Only poor men become interested in me if they have proper association. Rich are not interested in me, rather, they are scared of me. I and my followers are not at all interested in sense gratification. This is what he is implying. And then he says, marriage and friendship are proper between two people who are equal in terms of their wealth, birth, influence, physical appearance, and capacity for good progeny, but never between a superior and an inferior. Compatibility. Talking about that, he says, okay, master and servant or guru and disciple is a different situation. But as far as marriage and friendship should be among equals for compatibility. Your father is wealthy, but my father has no wealth. You are from great dynasty, but I am a Yadava. You are fair and I am dark. Tu gori, मैं काला, तो राजकुमारी, मैं ग्वाला. One by one, he is, like making a case. Oh, Vaidarbhi, not being far-sighted, you didn't realize this, and therefore you chose us as your husband, even though we have no good qualities and are glorified only by deluded beggars. He says, तो अदीर्घ समीक्षया, you are not far-sighted, you are too short-sighted, you are infatuated. Sometimes in infatuation, you are not far-sighted, you don't see a big perspective, full picture. And then he says, Gunair hina, I have no qualities, I have no good qualities. Bhikshu bhi shlagita mudha, only glorified by deluded beggars. And then he says, she may be thinking, itna sab bol rahe hain. And then Krishna is indicating, now you should definitely accept a more suitable husband. So chalo, no problem if you want. A first-class man of royal order who can help you achieve everything you want, both in this life and the next. So Rukmini may ask, ठीक है, I was short-sighted, I was fool, but what about you? Why did you accept me? Krishna in the next two verses replies, knowing all of this, still why I accepted you. He says, kings like Shishupal, Shalva, Jarasandha and Dantavakra all hate me, and so does your elder brother Rukmi. It was to dispel the arrogance of these kings that I carried you away, my good woman, for they were blinded by the intoxication of power. My purpose was to curb the strength of the wicked. Vinashaya Sudishkratam. That was the only reason. It was not your love letter that dragged me into this. This is how he is, very categorically, point by point, making his case. Then he says, as if to, like in case Rukmini says, ठीक है, if I get married, what about you? Keeping that in mind, he says, don't worry about me. Then he says, we care nothing for wives, children and wealth. Always satisfied within ourselves, we do not work for body or home, but like a light, we merely witness. We are just a witness. Now, Shukadeva Goswami further says, Rukmini had thought herself especially beloved by the Lord because he never left her company. By saying these things to her, he vanquished her pride and then he stopped speaking. Can you imagine? He's lying down like Ranganath on Sheshashai and she is spanning, poor thing, and suddenly speaks such cruel, harsh words. And Rukmini is stunned. She was thinking she was the senior most and very favorite queen. What was Rukmini's thought? It was a sattvic pride. Rukmini had thought, though I am unfit, by his oceanic good qualities, Krishna has accepted me, thus has made me most fortunate. This was her thought. How fortunate I am. Not that her, she was thinking I am the best. How fortunate that even though I have no qualities, he has chosen me. And now she is completely devastated. Rukmini had never before heard such unpleasantries from her beloved, the Lord of universal rulers, and she became frightened. A tremor arose in her heart, and in terrible anxiety, tears began to roll down her cheeks. With her tender foot, effulgent with the reddish glow of her nails, she scratched the ground, and tears, darkened by her eye makeup, sprinkled her kumkum-reddened breasts. There she stood, face downward, her voice choked up by extreme sorrow. And then Shukadeva Goswami, further describing her condition, says, Rukmini's mind was overwhelmed with unhappiness, fear and grief. Her bangle slipped from her hand and her fan fell to the ground. In her bewilderment, she suddenly fainted, her hair scattering all about her body as she fell to the ground like a plantain tree blown over by the wind. Dandavat. Literally, I saw one person in the railway station. He suddenly fell like that. Of course, back way, not front. So just like that, fainting. Rukmini attained the state of sattvic bhava, devotional ecstasies, ranging from stambha, stunned, to pralaya, fainting. This was not an ordinary kind of fainting, but this was extreme love, feeling of separation from Krishna. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains, Prema Bandhanam, bound by pure love, she could not understand Krishna's joking. She actually fainted. She thought Krishna was serious. And he explains, Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur explains, as prema increases, devotee feels humble and wretched more and more, thinking, I am not worthy of Krishna and therefore I deserve to be rejected by him. Borijan Prabhu made a very interesting statement. A sign of advancement in love of God is humility. He said, born of humility is a sense of dependence. And born of dependence is appreciation. You appreciate how much I am dependent on the mercy of the Lord. And born of that appreciation is a sense of deep gratitude. But when Krishna spoke such harsh words, it was intolerable for her. And when Krishna saw this, immediately he got down from bed and he produced 4 arms and picked up Rukmini. Manifesting 4 arms, he picked her up, gathered her hair and caressed her face with his lotus hand. Wiping her tear-filled eyes and her breasts, which were stained with tears of grief, the Supreme Lord, the goal of his devotees, embraced his chaste wife, who desired nothing but him. Expert in the art of pacification, Sri Krishna tenderly consoled pitiable Rukmini, whose mind was bewildered by his clever joking and who did not deserve to suffer so. Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur said, why Krishna produced 4 hands? Because he wanted to do all of this together. Caressing her hair, wiping her tears, setting up her hair, embracing her. And now Krishna again started speaking. O Vaidarbhi, do not be displeased with me. I know that you are fully devoted to me. I only spoke in jest, dear lady, because I wanted to hear what you would say. I also wanted to see your face and lips trembling in loving anger, the reddish corners of your eyes throwing sidelong glances, and the line of your beautiful eyebrows knit in a frown. Satyabhama was. Without asking, she would do this regularly. But Rukmini, I wanted to see that. But then, she had fainted. Very interesting point Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur brings out here. He says, if it was Krishna's desire, Krishna is the supreme controller. If it is Krishna's desire that Rukmini should have been angry and given some happiness to Krishna by that kind of disposition, why didn't Rukmini comply with it and show anger? And then he gives a very technical and very subtle understanding. Krishna's Ichha Shakti, Krishna has 2 Shakti, Ichha Shakti and Prema Shakti. Now Ichha Shakti is under his control, but Prema controls Krishna. So next to Prema, his Ichha Shakti has no power. To increase Krishna's ecstasy, Prema sometimes goes against the desire of the Lord, as shown here, just to give pleasure to Krishna. Sometimes it goes against Ichha Shakti by his Ichha. But that is inconceivable. And then Krishna said, the greatest pleasure worldly householders can enjoy at home is to spend time joking with their beloved wives. My dear timid and temperamental one. He said, Bhamini and Bhiru, very timid and she's temperamental, very emotional. Shukadeva Goswami now says, when Rukmini heard Krishna saying this, Queen Vaidarbhi was fully pacified by the Supreme Personality of Godhead and understood that his words had been spoken in jest, just in joke. Thus she gave up her fear that her beloved would reject her. Smiling bashfully as she cast charming, affectionate glances upon the face of the Lord, Rukmini spoke the following. Now she kind of settled herself, and now she took her Bhagavad Gita and went to the law court. And one by one, she is going to counteract Krishna's argument. Now she is assured that he was joking. And now she is taking point by point. Now Krishna made 11 points which Rukmini will disqualify and disprove in Krishna's glorification. What were the 11 points? Incompatibility, fearfulness, I'm a very coward, I'm always fearful of the kings, taking shelter in the ocean like a coward, quarreling with the powerful, no friends, abandoning his kingdom, uncertainty as to his identity, acting against ordinary standards of behavior, having no good qualities, being praised falsely by beggars, aloofness, and lack of desire for family life. These are the points that Krishna had made, and she is going to counter it now. So now Rukmini takes the point, and she says, Dear Lord, point number 1, Your Honor. Of course, she says, actually, what you have said is true, O lotus-eyed one. I am indeed unsuitable for the Almighty Personality of Godhead. What comparison is there between that Supreme Lord, who is master of the 3 primal deities, and who delights in his own glory, and myself a woman of mundane qualities, whose feet are grasped by fools. Now Rukmini actually speaks as if she is his external energy. She's internal energy, internal potency, antaranga shakti. But she's turning it around on him and says, "You are right. You are right. It was incompatible. Because who are you, Trayadhish, and who am I? I am covered by the three modes of nature. I am Maya." And then she says, "As regards taking shelter in the ocean due to fear of the powerful kings," she said, "actually what you're telling is right. Yes, my lord Urukrama, you lay down within the ocean as if afraid of the material modes, and thus in pure consciousness you appear within the heart as a super soul. You're always battling against the foolish material senses, and indeed even your servants reject the privilege of royal dominion, which leads to blindness of ignorance." What basically she is saying is, you are right, you hide in the ocean, fearful of the powerful rulers. And who are the powerful rulers? The powerful rulers are the three modes of nature. To protect your devotees from the three modes of nature, you enter their heart and hide there within as Antaryami. It's very interesting. Why he is called Antaryami? In the Mahabharata, it is explained, when people break the laws of this world, they come under the jurisdiction of Yamaraj. Yama means regulator. But anyone who takes shelter of Antaryama, internal regulator, doesn't have to ever face the external Yamaraj. Therefore, he is called Antaryami. Antaryami. That means internal regulator. Sarvasya chaham hridi sannivishto matta smritir jnanam apohanam cha. So in this way she counters that, saying that yes, you are hiding in the ocean of the core of their hearts just to protect from the powerful rulers the three modes of nature of this material world. And yes, you created enemy with the powerful. Those enemies are the senses, which always constantly attack your devotees. And he is constantly trying to help them in their struggle for spiritual purity. When the devotees become free of unwanted material habits, the Lord reveals himself to them, and then the loving relationship between the Lord and his devotees become irrevocable fact. And in this way, she counteracts that. Then he had said that those women who take shelter of such people like me have always to suffer. Men whose behavior is uncertain, that's me. Aloka patham. And then he aspashta vartmanam, that my behavior is very uncertain. You don't know what I'm going to do next moment. And there she says, your movements, inscrutable even for sages who relish the honey of your lotus feet, are certainly incomprehensible for human beings who behave like animals. And just as your activities are transcendental, so too are those of your followers. She again turns it around. That, because he said that aloka patham, and that she says unworldly path. Not the worldly path, but unworldly path. In the present verse, Rukmini is taking the term aloka patham to mean unworldly path. She says, those who are entangled in worldly behavior are trying to enjoy this world. Even if such people are culturally advanced, they should simply be considered sophisticated and polished animals. Rukmini Devi points out that because of the Lord's activities are always transcendental, they are aspashta. They are very clear. As Krishna says, Janma karma cha me divyam. Not all can understand. So you are right, my Lord. Not all can understand your path. Your path is very uncertain. And as far as you possess nothing, She says, you are right. You are right. Because a man can say, I possess this building, I possess a car, I possess a wife. You can't say that, my Lord, because you are everything. Krishna says in the Bhagavad Gita that in my unmanifest form I am all pervading. In fact, everything is within me. It's described one time, Akbar asked Birbal, he said, Birbal, please tell me, what is one thing that I can do even God cannot do? Birbal said, there is one thing that you can do, God can't do. Acha, what is that? You can banish someone from your kingdom. The Lord can't do it. Because everywhere are His kingdom. Everything. Maya tatamidam sarvam jagadavyakta murthina matsthani sarvabhutani. So yes, you possess nothing, my Lord, because everything is you. And then she says, and you are glorified by those who possess nothing. And there she says, the demigods, the most wealthiest of them, what can they offer to the Lord? Because ultimately, whatever they offer to the Lord belongs to the Lord. As Prabhupada gives the example, if you want to worship Ganga, what do? You stand waist deep in the Ganga, pick up little water and offer it to the Ganga. That's it. What have you done? So truly, only those who approach you, the person who approach you are only those who understand that everything belongs to you. Nishkinchana, as Kunti Devi says, Tvam akinchana gochara. You can only be seen, you can only be approached, you can only be understood by those who understand that they have nothing, everything that they have is yours. Yes, my Lord, you have no aim of life, because you are the aim of life ultimately for everyone. Vedaischa sarvair ahameva vedyo. And in this way, and now she goes to the compatibility part. You said that marriage and friendship are proper between two people who are equal in terms of wealth, etc. In fact, only those who have given up all such conceptions of me and mine, have taken exclusively to the Lord's loving service, can understand who their real friend and companion is. Suhridam sarvabhutanam, bhoktaram yagyatapasam sarvaloka maheshwaram. Said, you think like that? Yes. Those people become your friend. Actually, Krishna is Suhridam, friend of every living entity, but those who acknowledge become friends with him. And therefore, you are right, my Lord. In this way, and she said, and Krishna had said, that only those who are bhikshubhihi, beggars, glorify me as a supreme and approach me. He says, those are the Paramahamsas, the ultimate stage of sannyas. The 4 stages of sannyas, Kutichak, Bahodak, Parivrajaka. They have even thrown away the danda. They acknowledge and they actually take complete shelter of you. So in this way, and then she says, one argument that Krishna had given, that in fear of the kings, I have taken shelter in the ocean. He said, my Lord, as a lion drives away lesser animals to claim his proper tribute, you drove off the assembled kings with a resounding twang of your saranga bow and then claim me. Thus it is sheer foolishness, my dear Gadagraja, for you to say that you took shelter in the ocean out of fear of those kings. Don't give me that stuff. That's what she's very refined way, polished way, respectfully saying. And then you say that those who take shelter only cry and become distressed. Then she says, wanting your association, the best of kings abandoned their absolute sovereignty and entered the forest to seek you out. How could those kings suffer frustration in this world, O lotus-eyed one? In fact, they understand the highest perfection. How can they feel distressed? In this way, after Gunair Heenaha, another thing that Krishna had said, that I have no good qualities. Why did you choose me? And she says, the aroma of your lotus feet, which is glorified by great saints, awards people liberation and is the abode of goddess Lakshmi. What woman would take shelter of any other man after savoring that aroma? Since you are abode of the transcendental qualities, what mortal woman with insight to distinguish her own true interest would disregard that fragrance and depend instead on someone else? She says, he had told that you are very short-sighted. He said, I considered everyone including Brahma and Shiva also. But I realized, Brahma bhona loka punaravartin Arjuna. And you are Sachidananda Vigraha. So my Lord, I did lot of consideration before I chose you. And in this way, Rukmini Devi concludes this particular section by saying, by arguing, O lotus-eyed one, though you are satisfied within yourself and thus rarely turn, because he said, I am neutral, I am a silent witness, I am detached. She says, though you are satisfied within yourself and thus rarely turn your attention toward me, please bless me with steady love for your lotus feet. It is when you assume a predominance of passion in order to manifest the universe that you glance upon me. It's fact that you are totally aloof, but you glance upon me just when you want to create. Again, Rukmini is taking the position of Maya Devi. And in this way, humbly, actually, I don't consider your words false, O Madhusudana. And in this way, she actually systematically dismantles all his arguments. And then Krishna looks at her and says, he too sobers down and he says, O saintly lady, O princess, we deceived you only because we wanted to hear you speak like this. Because as she was saying, her eyebrows were twitching, her eyes were getting red, and she pointed fingers at the Lord, index finger especially. And she showed her anger. It is foolish of you to speak like this. How can you say like this? And she dismantled everything. And therefore she said, indeed, everything you said in reply to my words is most certainly true. Whatever benedictions you hope for in order to become free of material desires are ever yours, O fair and noble lady, for you are my unalloyed devotee. O sinless one, I have now seen firsthand the pure love and chaste attachment you have for your husband. Even though shaken by my words, your mind could not be pulled away from me. When you sent, and then Krishna says, fortunately, O mistress of the house, you have always rendered me faithful devotional service, which liberates one from material existence. In all my palaces, I can find no other wife as loving as you, O most respectful one. When you were to be married, you disregarded all the kings who had assembled to seek your hand, and simply because you had heard authentic accounts concerning me, you sent a Brahmana to me with your confidential message. And Krishna remembers when Rukmini completely conquered Krishna. When your brother, who had been defeated in battle and then disfigured, was later killed during a gambling match in Aniruddha's wedding day, you felt unbearable grief, yet out of fear of losing me, you spoke not a word. By this silence, you have conquered me. Just because she thought that she would lose his association, and therefore she tolerated even the death of her elder brother during the marriage of her grandson. And he says, through that one act, you completely conquered me. When you sent the messenger with your most confidential plan, and yet I delayed going to you, you began to see the whole world as void and wanted to quit your body, which could never have been given to anyone but me. May this greatness of yours remain with you always. I can do nothing to reciprocate except joyfully thank you for your devotion. Na parayeham, as Krishna told the gopis, he said, you better be satisfied with your devotional service. I, Shadaishwarya Purna Bhagavan, I cannot reciprocate with the affection and the love that you have shown. In fact, similar thing Lord Ramchandra told to Hanumanji. He said, the only thing I can do for giving me life back, actually you gave my life back by informing me about Sita's well-being. And therefore the only thing I can do is embrace you. There's that beautiful picture how Lord Ram is embracing Hanumanji. That shows his total gratitude towards him. Kaha bharat sam tum priya bhai, sahas vadan tumharo yash gave, asakai Shripati kantha lagave. So in this way, he expressed his gratitude to him. Okay, Indra? Somewhere here? Sorry, yep. So I was kind of thinking after this whole chapter, what is the lesson for us in this very loving, sweet, intimate interaction with Rukmini Devi? Srila Vishwanath Chakravarti Thakur mentions Krishna's apparently insensitive words were like a grinding, pestle and a mortar. And Rukmini's heart was like the fragrant camphor. And his words actually, the more he spoke, it is like grinding. And the more that fragrant camphor is ground, the fragrance come out. And similarly, by agitating and apparently disturbing the loving service of Rukmini Devi, he didn't stop it, but he further strengthened it. I remember one time, one of my first questions after coming to the Hare Krishna movement, one of my first questions, the second question rather, the first question was why Bhishma fought against Krishna. But the second question that I had, it was actually eating me up, was Prahlad and the Pandavas. So much suffering they underwent. How could we understand this? And the answer that I replied was very crisp, short, and to the point. For purification and glorification. So here, Krishna wanted to glorify Rukmini Devi's steadfast love and affection towards him. Apparently, a very private conversation in the bedroom of his palace. Nobody could enter Dwarka. Even Mahavishnu could not enter Dwarka without Dwarkadhish's permission. It's impossible. Nobody could enter. Lord Brahma couldn't enter. But Shukadeva Goswami so mercifully gives us access to the most intimate interaction, apparently a mundane interaction between a husband and a wife. Like a very intimate joking. But he gives us access to that. And through that reveals a very, very sweet quality is being brought out. As a perfect pati or a husband, he is actually bringing out Rukmini's mood of loving service. And I was thinking, all of us, in that sense, Krishna is our pati. Shriyah pati, Yagyapati, Prajapati, Dhyyampati, Lokapati, Dharapati, Patir Gatischandhaka Vrishni Sattvatam. So truly speaking, he is our Lord and Master. And sometime or the other, either Krishna personally could tease us in various ways, or through his external energy, Maya, could tease us, telling us, probably you made a wrong choice. तू क्या क्या कर सकता था, कहाँ कहाँ जा सकता था. Sometimes these thoughts we may not express, but sometimes we wonder, did we choose the right path? Did we make the right choice? And there may be several, justifiable excuses that the mind may give of, probably would have got that, or this, or that. But then it's a question of making and Rukmini gave, as they say, a punching reply. मुंह तोड़ जवाब. That may not be so appropriate. A real reply, by her determination, by her clarity, by her, just like Arjun was also given a choice. During the Udyog Parva, actually Arjun came, and when Arjun decided to come to Krishna to ask for his help, Duryodhan came well in advance and stood right next to Krishna's head. And Arjun came a little later and stood at the feet of Krishna. So Krishna woke up and saw Arjun first, and then he looked up and he said, "Oh, you also." And then he asked, he said, "Well, both of you have come together. Very surprising." I said, "How come? What's it?" And they both said, "We have come for your help." He said, "Oh, I am related to both of you and I want to be impartial. Samaham sarvabhuteshu name dveshosti na priya." And then he actually said, "But I saw Arjun first and I saw you later. And by the way, Arjun is younger to you. He should be given the first choice. I will divide myself into two halves. On one side is this Narayani Sena of 1 crore powerful warriors who have never lost a battle. And on the other side, me, without any weapons. You won the toss. Arjun, take a choice. It's very interesting why Krishna gave Arjun a choice. Again, to show to the whole world the conviction of Arjun. And Arjun, without blinking an eye, without any hesitation, instantly said, "You, my Lord." "I don't know, but no weapon." I said, "No, I don't care. I just want you." This is there in the Mahabharata, Udyog Parva. Duryodhana was so happy. After losing the toss, you get to bat on a pitch which is a batting pitch. Imagine, something like that. So Duryodhana was so happy. Externally he said, "All right, if that's what you choose, Hari Bol." Kind of. And he walked away. And somebody wrote a very nice poem. Not nice, kind of a four-liner. It seems Krishna looked at Arjun as if to say, "Arjun, हार निश्चित है तेरी, हरदम रहेगा उदास." अर्जुन, हार निश्चित है तेरी, हरदम रहेगा उदास. माखन दुर्योधन ले गया, बस छाछ बची तेरे पास. Something like Krishna teasing Rukmini. But Arjun smiled, looked at Krishna, मुंह तोड़ जवाब. He said, "प्रभु, जीत निश्चित है मेरी, दास हो नहीं सकता उदास. जीत निश्चित है मेरी, दास हो नहीं सकता उदास. अरे माखन लेकर क्या करूं जब माखन चोर है मेरे पास." Srila Prabhupada says, Krishna is like the one, and all other qualities are like big, big zeros. In and of itself, all these zeros are valueless. Just put one, and instantly everything becomes valuable. That is the conviction. That's the clarity. So, this is Rukmini's devotion was founded on solid truth and understanding of who Krishna is. Yatra Yogeshwara Krishno, Yatra Partho Dhanurdhara, Tatra Shri Vijayo Bhutir Dhruvani Tirmatirmama. That's the conviction. Even Sanjaya says to Dhritarashtra, said, "Why can't you see? Why can't you see?" Incidentally, Sanjay and Dhritarashtra were in the same class. They were classmates in Vyasdev's tutorials. They studied. In fact, Dhritarashtra is the son of Vyasdev, while Sanjay was only a student. And Dhritarashtra asked, "How can you see and how I cannot see? How are you able to see and you are able to forecast what is going to happen in the battle, and how I am not able to see?" And that's when he said that, Yatra Yogeshwara Krishna, because Krishna is there. Why can't you see? It's so obvious. So this conviction, what is the time? Yeah. So that's the conviction that devotees exude when confronted with apparently a situation where doubts arise in our heart. It's like a journey. Recently I was reading a book, a very, very famous book, next to the Bible, the most sold book amongst the Christians is called The Pilgrim's Progress by John Bunyan. This is talking about, this is in the year 1678 or something, where he wrote A Pilgrim's Progress, a journey of a sadhak towards the perfection of life. And so many characters he meets, and all of these characters actually represent different kind of, sometimes he meet Mr. Despair, Mr. Ritual, very ritualistic or hypocritical behavior. And sometimes he meets very wonderful people who give him inspiration and a nudge to move forward, indicating inevitably everyone that will be moving forward in this journey. I mean, they may meet different people at different times, to different degrees, to different extent, to different time in their journey, but it's inevitable. And how wonderfully a devotee who has this conviction chooses Krishna in spite of all these apparent temptations that is presented, that you made a wrong choice. Rupa Goswami so beautifully summarizes. You don't have to write a story. Can you imagine? Just in 11 verses, he consolidates and concisely writes all that you need to know to complete this journey. Just 11 verses in the nectar of instruction. 6 favorable items, 6 unfavorable items. Utsahat, Nishchayat, Dhairyat. Amazing. Atyahar, Prayashasya, Prajal, Puryam, Agraha. And in his NOD, these are books given by our acharyas to give foundation to our devotional sentiment. Mere devotion without philosophical foundation becomes sentimentality, or it may even lead to even fanaticism of superficial rituals. But then, if they actually have that, and by the mercy of Srila Prabhupada, that has been presented to us to give us a very, very solid foundation to construct this building of devotion. Emotion. Devotion is about emotion, but that emotion is based on the solid foundation of truth. I last year, for Prabhupada's, last year I think, for Prabhupada's appearance day, in trying to glorify his books, I was just thinking I should write something. And I wrote a poem. And I liked it myself. I have written 3-4 poems in my life. But after coming to Krishna consciousness, I wrote only one. And I consider that Uttam Shlok. Not because I wrote it, because it is glorifying as an amazing devotee of the Lord who we can never express our gratitude fully. It's a short poem. It's about boat, because there's books that Srila Prabhupada gave. So the poem goes like this. It says, एक नाव प्रभुपाद ने लेकर, एक नाव प्रभुपाद ने लेकर एक नाव प्रदान किया, एक नाव प्रभुपाद ने लेकर एक नाव प्रदान किया, एक नाव की महिमा गाकर एक नाव से बचा लिया, एक नाव की महिमा गाकर एक नाव से बचा लिया, एक नाव का आश्रय देकर जीवों का उद्धार किया, धन्यवाद प्रभुपाद आपका सबका बेड़ा पार किया। तालियां तो बजा लिया, अभी परपोर्ट सुनिए। एक नाव प्रभुपाद ने लेकर, ही टुक अ बोट, जलदूत इज वेरी इंटरेस्टिंग, ही इज विष्णुदूत एक्चुअली, क्रॉसिंग द ओशन of Viraja to come to this world, because he came through that Jaladoot. तो एक नाव प्रभुपाद ने लेकर, he took a boat, एक नाव प्रदान किया, he traveled all over to give us a boat. What is that boat? In the 10th canto of Srimad Bhagavatam, when Krishna is still in the womb of his mother, the Devatas come and glorify him. And there they tell a particular verse, how grateful they are to Krishna. And they say that Swayam samuttirya sudustaram dyuman bhavaranavam bhimam adabhra sauhrada bhavat padambhoruha navamatrate nidhaya yata sadanagraho bhava. He said, Swayam samuttirya, the great personalities, great devotees, pure devotees of the Lord, the saintly personalities who come from the spiritual world, Swayam samuttirya, they effortlessly cross the ocean of birth and death. Swayam samuttirya sudustaram bhavaranavam bhimam, extremely fierce and insurmountable ocean of birth and death, they effortlessly cross. Like a, like a child crossing over a footprint of a calf. Bhavaranavam bhimam. But adabhra sauhradaha, they are our eternal well-wishers. And therefore, bhavat padambhoruha navam, the lotus feet that they hold to for crossing over. We say, Nama Om Vishnu Padaya Krishna Prishthaya Bhutale. So they hold to the lotus feet and cross over this ocean, but fortunately, they leave behind that boat by which they cross on the other side of the ocean for us. And Prabhupada writes in the purport, that boat is nothing but their personal example and their instructions. And there he says, Srila Rupa Goswami has very mercifully given us certain instructions on how to cross this ocean. And these are bona fide instructions that is being handed over in Parampara. So his books are actually a boat. That's why we say that Guru Krishna Prasade Paye Bhakti Lata Bij. Guru Krishna Prasade Paye. It is both of them are standing, but the Guru is much more accessible because he is the one who shows us the path. Guru Govind Dono Khade. So in this way, he is the one, and that contribution they plan together by giving us this message. So, एक नाव प्रभुपाद ने लेकर एक नाव प्रदान किया. He gave us his wonderful books, the Bhaktivedanta purports. Then, एक नाव की महिमा गाकर, and he traveled all over the world to preach the importance of one boat. And what is that boat? That boat is Nrideham Adyam Sulabham Sudurlabham Plavam Sukalpam Guru Karnadharam Mayanukulena Nabhasvateritam Puman Bhavabdhim Natarets Atmaha. Nrideham, human form of life. Sulabham, it is very easily achieved. None of us tried for it. We suddenly found ourselves. That's all that we have in this body. Sulabham. But Sudurlabham, extremely rare. And Sukalpam, it is exclusively made for crossing over. No other boat is as favorable in the 84 lakh species as this boat. And what to speak of, you get a good captain in the boat, Guru Karnadharam, and favorable winds of the scriptural directions, the true north. So he glorified the importance of the human form of life. So एक नाव की महिमा गाकर एक नाव से बचा लिया. And which is this boat that he saved us from? Krishna expresses to Arjun in the Bhagavad Gita, Indriyanam hi charatam yan mano anuvidhiyate tadasya harati pragyam vayuhu navam iva ambhasi. Even one of the senses, if the mind focuses on that sense, which is focusing on the sense object, dhyayato vishayan, can easily drag away and take us somewhere else totally. Like a boat lost in the winds of a storm. That is the mind, restless mind. So, ek naav se bacha liya. How did he protect us? By giving us the process. Manaha trayate iti mantra. How you can easily control the mind to make it move. So, ek naav ki mahima gaakar, ek naav se bacha liya. And then ek naav ka ashray dekar, he gave the ashray, the shelter of another boat. And what was that boat? Samashritaye padapallavam plavam mahatpadam punya yasho murare bhavambudhir vatsapadam param padam yat pipadam natesham. Samashritaye, one who has taken complete shelter, padapallavam plavam. The plava means boat, of the lotus feet of the Lord. And truly, taking shelter of the lotus feet of the Lord means engaging in the devotional service of the Lord. Ekhono bujhino prabhu tomar charana, ashoka bhayamrita, purva sarva khana. So in this way, actually taking shelter of the lotus feet means practically engaging in devotional service to the Lord, by which Mahatpadam Punya, Bhavam Buddhi, the whole ocean, material ocean, becomes like a hoof print or water contained in the hoof print of a calf. Vatsapadam, Param Padam Yat Pipadam Natesham. So all these apparently difficulties that are faced, which Maya challenges, which sometimes the mind, or it may come through anyone, either Krishna can speak through or somebody else, but this kind of thing. What did you do? I didn't. I thought you made. I think you made a wrong choice. Still, you can reconsider if you want. And then, if we are solidly founded on this, that is the time we could actually give a punching dose to Maya and actually express through our conviction, through our determination. So this is also the month of December, and recently our Baldev Prabhu was giving a class and he said, Kartik mein tumne khoob liya. Margashirsh mein baato. This is Masanam Margashirshoham. That's very dear to Krishna. This month is very dear. Kartik is dear to Radharani. Margashirsh is dear to Krishna. So he said, this is the time when Krishna, and it is actually pleasing when we share this. Truly, I was reading Lilamrit some time back, and I was simply amazed. We have heard so many times, but I was just thinking. I've been for last 1 month, as I do some exercise in the morning, I hear Prabhupada's lecture, and the simplicity of his message, the clarity and the authority. I was thinking, when practically no one knew much, and going amongst that kind of a crowd, how could he bring such clarity? Otherwise, it is so foggy. Whole Vedic literature also could be so foggy. Within that, it's like, Chakshur Unmilitam. It's like Chakshudam Diloye. You actually wear the specs, you see things so clear, so simple. So simple. As Mahavishnu Maharaj, expressed, talking about Pati. We were recently in Dwarka at Mahavishnu Maharaj's place, and there we were recollecting. He had come to our temple and he made a statement. The essence of all Vedas is just in one statement. He said, कृष्ण हमारे पति, उनकी चरण हमारे गति, उनमें लगाओ अपनी मति, ताकि हृदय में उत्पन्न होगी रति. This is the essence of whole Vedic literature. संबंध अभिधेय प्रयोजन. भगवान संबंध अभिधेय, भक्ति अभिधेय है. प्रेम प्रयोजन वेदे 3 वस्तु का है. Gati is knowing the destination. And pati means your identity. Who are you? Then the gati is established. Patir gatischandhaka vrishni sattvatam. In fact, in one prayer of Kunti Devi, all of this is explained. Tvai me ananya vishaya matihi madhupate asakrit ratim udduhatam adha gangaivaugha mudanvati. Said, let my mind flow towards Madhupati, who is the pati of everyone. Gati. And now let my mind flow like Ganga, incessantly flowing towards the ocean without stopping, in spite of any kind of obstacles. Let my consciousness flow. Tvai me ananya vishaya matihi madhupate asakrit ratim udvahata. And that will be possible when there is true love, which is there dormant within the heart of every living entity and evoked by the process of bhakti as described in the scriptures. So, we express our gratitude to all those personalities by, first of all, accepting what they have struggled to give. Like a relay race, they have brought it to our doorstep. After accepting, to apply it in our own lives so that our words carry some weight, and then to administer it to others as far as we can. Thus our life will be perfect. Hare Krishna. Thank you very much. Srila Prabhupada ki, Rukmini Devi ki, Sri Krishna Bhagavan ki.
RG Media YouTube channel. Like, share, subscribe.